just like our language has. We think it's better now because we understand it the way it is now. But if we had grandparents or great-great-grandparents that were still alive that spoke Old English and read Old English, we would understand that they would say that new English is really not English. What I'm speaking is English. And this is the confrontation that we're going to have with most modern Hebrew scholars. They're just going to say we don't support the Paleo or the hieroglyphics because there's really no scholars that teach on that anymore. I'm going to suggest that Brad Scott, Jeff Benner, and all of these other guys that have done all of the footwork in these Egyptian hieroglyphic, all the hieroglyphics in the world, linguistics, men who study linguistics are the true scholars, not just one of us that studies either the ancient Hebrew alphabet, the Paleo form, which is the middle form, or the modern. It all needs to be studied in totality, or there's always going to be a piece of the puzzle missing. Because obviously Moshe could not have written the Torah originally in modern Hebrew. And so I want to point out some historic information. After we read this, who would like to read the 3rd chapter of Zephaniah, verses 1 through 10? Anybody?
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
You got your camera rolling?
I just turned it on. Yeah, because we're going to offer this on a CD, DVD, or something. More likely just DVD, because I think that what was her name that runs the camera?
Aaron.
Erin. So Erin said that she would like to get a copy of it to where she can put it on a DVD for you guys as well. And you guys can do whatever you want with it. You can record this, write it down, agree with Teddy or disagree. It doesn't even matter. We're not here for that. What we're doing this for is to show people what I believe to be a better way of researching doctrine. Because let's face it, a lot of doctrinal indifferences is what's keeping a lot of the assemblies separated. Like we were talking about the Unity Conference a moment ago. Why are we not still going? Why are we? Well, because there's the youth are looking at us, people, and going, they're really not getting along. And if this is what it's all about, then not all of the youth see it, but I'm sure that some of the youth that are related to the parent or children of an elder, then they hear certain things, and they know that at times there's not a whole lot of common ground on certain issues. I truly believe that if we would sit down and use this process or one like it to get back to the root meaning of all of these words that we argue over in English, that there would be a lot more unity in the assemblies of Yahweh. I really do, but we have to be willing to say I was wrong. I'm going to say today that I feel that I'm right about this, but I've been proven wrong on a couple of things that I learned initially. So not everything that I say is factual, but it will be related to the truth concerning all of these different avenues that we're going to use in order to get back to the roots of the words of our Bible. That is the most important thing, because if certain things have not been defined correctly, then how can we know the truth? I mean, and I know we have years and years and years of reprinting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we got it right. Okay? The King James Version did the same thing. So the Bethel edition, Y.A.I.M's, Sam's, everybody has a little different wording. So are we going to say who's right? The Hebrew is the final authority. That's who wrote the scriptures. So it doesn't matter who translated it. does check the translator's homework. And I have found that this has led me to more truths. And I want to share that with you guys today. Now, so let's go ahead and have somebody read chapter 3 in Zephaniah, verses 1 through 10, and then we'll get into a little history behind that is, you probably may have or may not have heard this before, but it opens up a whole new way of looking at what Yahweh was actually saying through this prophet. So who would like to read that passage?
I will.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm reading from the Hebraic Roots Bible, 2012, and Judgment on Jerusalem and the Nations. Zephaniah 3:1. Woe to her rebelling and being defiled, to the oppressing city. She did not listen to the voice. She did not receive correction. She did not trust in Yahweh. She did not draw near to her Elohim. Her rulers within her are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. They do not gnaw bones for the morning. Her prophets are proud, men of deceit. Her priests have profaned the sanctuary. They have done violence to the Torah.
Let's talk about that for just a moment.
Wow.
So obviously in this prophecy, Yahweh is not happy. Yahweh is using the prophet to give a warning to Israel to repent of the wrongdoing, or there's going to be some repercussion for that in judgment. So we're talking about priests here and prophets. Everybody at this point had dropped the ball. The temple itself cannot be clean. Let's look at our temple. Our temple cannot be totally clean if we don't know if there's something that's defined wrong being brought over in the translation. There might be one little or two little things that we can learn from the study of the Hebrew and the definitions anciently versus modernly, that we go, oh, you know what? I see a little dirt in the corner over there. That this place is meant to be cleansed in the way that Yahweh said for it to be cleansed. So who wouldn't want to go the extra mile with Yahshua? I'm willing. And I've had to change a lot of my thoughts concerning certain things that I've been taught over the years. But at the same time, it didn't really make them a lie. It was just we have a little bit different information available now, opposed to when some of the elders or the pioneers wrote certain tracts and stuff that we learned from. It doesn't make it a lie, it actually adds to it. So many things, so many teachings that I do adds to stuff I learned from George, Pete, all of the elders in the assemblies, especially Trina, because I go over his works over and over and over, because I think he was on something. I think Yahweh was using Trina, in a forefront type of way. Praise Yahweh for him and his life. So, what I do want to point out here is that both priests and prophets had dropped the ball. So when a priest and a prophet drop the ball, that means that the whole nation is about to suffer. And I believe that that's why we see a lot of division right now in the assemblies, is because it's not about that anymore. It's not about the prophet's writings. It's not about the Torah explicitly. It's not about who's doing the baptism. To us, it's who agrees with our doctrine. Right? So are we dropping the ball? Now let's continue on, because if you read Ezekiel 44, this kind of goes in line with what Yahweh said through Ezekiel as well.
Can I read Ezekiel
Yes.
22:26?
You may. Yes, ma'am.
For priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and profane, neither have they showed difference between the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them.
Absolutely. And then chapter 44 says that the Zadokites, all right, the sons of Zadok. Let's talk about that, anciently speaking, before we finish this passage. Sons of Zadok they've capitalized, we've got capital letters in English, we should take them out. Concerning prophecies about the Son, we don't need to capitalize anything. There is no capitalization in Hebrew or in ancient Greek either. They didn't have uppercase letters. So we don't have to force Messiah into the scripture. He's everywhere. He's from cover to cover. So we don't, I think that's another thing that the ancient Hebrew text version is going to be doing, is removing the capitalized letters for the prophecies, because you don't have to do that. And it wasn't in the original text. So, having said that, if you go and you look at the word sons of Zadok in Hebrew, it's going to go back to these ancient characters. It's going to go back, of course, to Bane. Modern, when it's taught, B'nai, children. All right, but anciently it just would have been Bane. Bet noon. So, son, Bane, is a seed that comes from the house. Anciently speaking, they were saying the seed that comes from the house, and what does Zadok mean? Righteous. I believe it was one of the most major prophecies in text that they didn't catch. It was talking about the sons of the righteous, talking about Yahshua. There's only one righteous one, and we're the only ones that can be righteous in him. I believe it's a prophecy, and if they were going to capitalize any letters, it should have been those. Okay? So, having said that, sons of Zadok are sons of the righteous. And then it goes on in Ezekiel 44 to show how he's going to correct what Sister Kay just read. He said those priests have dropped the ball, and the prophets, they've all dropped the ball, and what's happening in my house, it's profaned. The house referring to the family, not just the temple. Because if the temple isn't clean, right, then the house isn't clean. And it's not approachable by a righteous king. Something holy, Kodesh, set apart. So sanctification by the Ruach, the Spirit of Yah, is what this whole thing is about. It's a future prophecy in Ezekiel 44, and he says, and the sons of Zadok will do what? Teach my people the difference between clean and unclean, and holy and unholy. So that job is up to us in the body of Yahshua. And if we're constantly at each other's throats, how can we do that? If we're constantly pointing fingers at each other and not willing to come together a couple times a year, regardless of indifferences, then what is that really showing the people around us that we minister to? And Yahweh is going to deal with that here by the end of the chapter, and it's going to point out something very wonderful about this form of study.
Okay, verse 5. The righteous Yahweh is in her midst. He will not act perversely. Every morning he gives his justice to the light. He does not fail, but the unjust knows no shame. I have cut off nations. Their towers are ruined. I made their streets waste so that none passes by. Their cities are laid waste without a man, from there being not one living there. I said, surely you will fear me, you will receive instruction, then her dwelling shall not be cut off, all that I appointed for her. But they rose up early, they corrupted all their doings. Verse 8. Therefore wait for me, declares Yahweh, for the day I rise up to the prey.
See this? He just separated what was going on then to something that leads to the correction of all this mishap in the future.
Therefore wait for me, declares Yahweh, for the day I rise up to the prey. For my judgment is to gather the nations, for me to gather the kingdoms, to pour my fury out on them.
So now we know we went from present time correction to future time redemption. Okay?
all my hot anger, for all the earth, the rest, shall be burned up with the fire of my jealousy. Yeah.
There's
Verse.
that baby of fire right there.
Yeah.
That Yahweh.
Yeah. Verse 9, for then I will give a clear lip to the peoples, to call all of them by the name of Yahweh, to serve him with one shoulder. Did you just want verse
10 too, please. Yeah.
From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers, the daughter of my scattered ones, shall bring my food offering.
This is new. What is the offering that we bring to Yahweh every single morning? It's Yahshua. Everything we ask is in the name of Yahshua. Again, if you connect this with the Ezekiel prophecies in, what was it that you read? Kay, was it in 22? Yeah, if you look at 22 and 44, these three passages go hand in hand about their present judgment and future redemption. Because with redemption is going to come judgment. He's going to begin in his house. Correct? Now what I want to do is, I want to point something out here. When Zephaniah wrote this prophecy, what form of Hebrew was being used? Does anybody know right off the top of their head? Paleo. The middle form of Hebrew was being used all the way up into the second captivity. It's proven. It's a fact. So, why is that important, Teddy? It's because a lot of people are looking at Jewish scholarly works and looking at the dates and times that they say the block Hebrew dates back to. And I look at the historical fact that it wasn't until the second dispersion that they took the Paleo Hebrew from them and made them use the Aramaic block letters. So it's an impossibility. Question all things. Prove and reprove all things. So I don't fall for those, scholarly works anymore like I used to. Now, do we need to look at Jewish history and literature? Absolutely. They preserved the Torah. To think that we shouldn't is just, in my opinion, a mistake. Now, that doesn't mean the original faith of Israel was Judaism, because the original faith of Israel was Torah. In the introduction it says, one of the major exegetical concerns was to determine the literal meaning of each word. This is the way the Hebrews did it. Did you catch that? One of his major exegetical concerns was to determine the literal meaning of each individual word. As he states in his commentary on Psalm 71:4, this is Hirsch's words, a quote: "Our sacred literature does not use obscure language, but describes most things in words clearly indicating their meaning. Therefore, it is necessary at all times to delve into the literal meaning of words in order to achieve complete understanding of what is actually meant." That's wisdom. I don't know how many times I've been teaching somewhere and they just say, well, somebody get the mic. And they start passing it around. And at the Unity conference, remember that guy that, I guess he was Jewish, he put me on the hot spot and he says, well, you're making it sound like we don't have any, we don't have any very accurate translations of the Torah, but yet it says in Timothy, and he started quoting us, well, first of all, it's all inspired, and I never said that it wasn't. However, I told him, brother, it's the same spirit that breathed the word through Moshe and the apostles and the prophets. That urge the men to bring this wonderful word over into all these other languages in the world. Their intent was to bring the word of Yah to their nation in their language. So obviously the Spirit of Yah is involved in that. But uneducated men may have done that. But I read this every morning without any of these books. And it inspires me. The inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh is never taken out of any translation. But it doesn't make the translation the main reason for the moving of the Ruach. The moving of the Ruach is to cause a love between you and the Spirit of Yah. It's to cause you to want to learn more and more and more and draw closer and closer to Him as we separate ourselves from this dying world. In studying the language that He breathed through the prophets and Moshe and the apostles, and every time He spoke to somebody through revelation, it was in the Hebrew tongue. It's the heavenly language. How could we not want to draw closer to Him? I mean, it's just beyond me. And not be led astray by things that may have not been accurately translated in the past. Let's just get over it. I mean, who wouldn't want to gain more knowledge and wisdom about the Hebrew language? It's just beyond me. It has changed my whole life, my whole direction in my walk. So, one more thing I want to read real quick. It's going to be, if you don't have the book, I'm going to pull it up here. It's on page 11 in the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon. If you're on the online version, it's probably going to be verse 12, or page 12. Right there. I want to talk about abstract and concrete differences.
Can we turn the light off right here?
We can.
I can't see that screen.
Sir, do you have any suggestions? One of my sons is very dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
He really struggles with just simple reading. I would really like him to get into reading Hebrew. And he was raised in the Word. Jay can tell you, we raised them Torah.
Right.
Do you have any ideas on how to encourage
Well,
him?
my wife does. My wife deals with one of her brothers that was dyslexic, and now he's reading everything, and he's putting it in the correct order. What I'll do is I'm going to give you her phone number, and you can ask her. Her and her mom came up with some things that really helped her brother in that area.
Yeah, he's so discouraged about it. He doesn't even want to try at this point, but it can't keep me from praying for him.
Well, right, yeah, and we'll continue to pray for him, because once he catches the bug, that spiritual bug to just get close to Him, I mean, it'll just happen.
Yeah, my youngest son is on to it. He wants to learn more.
Right, right. Okay, so maybe we can at least turn on that light, or can we? Or no? Okay.
No, one strip.
No, I meant the on the fan.
I know it was a fan.
Okay.
I don't know if they even work.
It's all right. All right. Yeah, because I can't see the wood in my book.
Okay.
There we go. Yep.
I think
That'll
that's
work.
perfect.
Will that work? Good job, brother.
Wow.
All right.
I just have
So-
to call on.
We can see the screen.
What I'm going to be reading here is from the top here down to here. Okay? So we're talking about, remember I was giving you guys the analogy of how a Hebrew mind would describe that tapestry and how the Western mind would? Okay. This is, Jeff is going to explain that a little bit better probably than I can. It says Greek thought views the world through the mind, abstract thought. Ancient Hebrew thought views the world through the senses, which is concrete thought. For instance, let's say that this was a hot pot. I see the pot, I touch it, whoa, that was hot. Senses, touch, hear, feel. That's the way the scriptures were written. The abstract mind went, oh, draw back. He didn't get burned, he drew back. Or excuse me, we would say he got burned, right? But actually the Hebrew would have not been worried about the burn. They said he drew back from it, which meant it was hot. So many times we choose English words when we're translating. We're not talking about transliteration as in nouns. That's a whole different area. Today we're talking about definitions. So whenever the abstract mind goes to translate a concrete message, and in some very critical instances, it hasn't went well. Like I was pointing out, the difference between the ancient definition for Boker and a Rev versus the modern. Well, who would have thunk? If we don't study the ancient and the Semitic forms of other language that came from the ancient Hebrew, how would we even know that? How could we ever correct that one little thing? But if we correct one little thing once a week, how much stronger does that make our ministering to people, our ability to walk more uprightly before the King? Come on, this is a no-brainer. So, there in paragraph 2, concrete thought is the expression of concepts and ideas in ways that can be seen, touched, smelled, tasted, and heard. All 5 of these senses are used when speaking, hearing, writing, and reading the Hebrew language. See, that's what the Hebrew language is meant to make the reader feel it. We know what we call that today? I got moved by the Spirit. Right? But that's not what they would have said. They would have said, this word is moving me. It's talking about the inner man being nourished by the word of Yah. That's what we were filled with in the very beginning, was the word of Yahweh. It's what covered us in light. And he's bringing us back into that light, which is Yahshua, correct? Come on, this is basic Hebrew 101. But it's something that we haven't been exposed to, many of us, in the assemblies. An example of this can be found in Psalms 1:3. He is like a tree, something you can see, planted by the streams of water, something you can see, which yields its fruit, something you can touch. Right? In season. Fruit in its season. And whose leaf does not wither. In this passage, the author expresses his thoughts in concrete terms such as tree, streams of water, fruit, and a leaf. If you look at that, it's talking about a person. It's talking about a person. He's comparing, the author is comparing the person, the man or the woman, of being strong as in like a river of water. A strong oak that is well rooted. Can somebody quote Psalms 1:1? Let's read it. Yep, let's read it.
I had it tip of my tongue.
Yeah. Let's read it real quick, brother, if you can go there. You'll see listen to the way Jeff lays this out right here. I mean, he's using the English Bible to show you Hebraic understanding. When, as most teachers will give you the abstract understanding, which doesn't make it wrong the majority of the time, but it does make it lose a little bit of the defining measures of why it was spoken.
Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the wicked, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful.
Keep going through.
Yeah, keep on going. Yeah, because see, all the way through 3 there, it says, so it's talking about a man's blessings coming from Yahweh. What they do, the function that it will give that person, that individual. It will make him like a what?
Like a tree that the plant that is the Bible. But his delight is in the law of Yahweh, and in his law does he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also does not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper.
Wow. That's what the blessings, the Hebrew word for blessings is barakot. The blessings of Yahweh will bring upon his children. It's going to make us like a tree that is watered by a river. And how many times do we read about rivers of water in prophecy and in the book of Revelation? How about our baptism? Has to do with water. The Y.A.I.M, the waters, living waters of life. And that's also in the Ezekiel prophecy at the end of the book. I think it's like in chapter 46 maybe? Sister Kay?
That word there, where brother read, in the first line of Psalm 1:1, where it was translated wicked. Lot's not in the counsel of the wicked. And the King James says ungodly.
Yeah.
It says that is the Hebrew Rasha, which is lawless.
Yep. Yes. Which in turn, if you think about it, the word evil, which is connected in thought to the word wicked, it actually means, anciently speaking, dysfunctional. So the lawless one that's spoken about in Thessalonians is talking about the leader of the people who are dysfunctional. Dysfunctional in what way? They're not functioning according to the way that the Torah told them to function. So that's why we call it lawless in English, which is a better rendition. But yes, that's what I mean. And then once you dove into your Strongs, you got the modern Hebrew definition that are in italics, and then you went into Benner's book, and you got the ancient definitions. We're not even going to cover the letters, because that just takes you into a whole different realm. We'll do that at some other point. But just the definitions, I mean, it is just so edifying. And it's not hard. We're going to do some here in just a minute. Everybody's going to know how to do the Old Testament before probably, or how much time do we have before we're going to have lunch?
You tell me.
I don't even know. You said an hour and a half.
No, but
Let's pick up there in the 3rd paragraph. It says, abstract thought is the expression of concepts and ideas in ways that cannot be seen, touched, smelled, tasted, or heard. Examples of abstract thought can be found in Psalms 103:8. Yahweh is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. The words compassion, grace, anger, and love are all abstract words. What does he mean by that? The English word love in Hebrew is an action. It's not an emotion. Which means Love in Yahweh's eyes means, for instance, the man is to love his family. It means that he covers it, nurtures it, provides for it, nourishes it, protects it. That's love. It's the action. You know what? Yahshua was the love of Yahweh in motion. Yahshua was the love of Yahweh in motion. In that physical realm that we could see him actually covering us, nurturing us. You see, it was an action that he sent his son. It was an action that the son came into the world and redeemed us. It was not merely just words that were spoken about by the prophets. He planned to show us in action. Yahshua was Yahweh's love in action. So it's when we put the word in action when we show that we love Yahweh or we love one another. Hallelujah. Ideas that cannot be experienced by the senses. Why do we find these abstract words in a passage of concrete thinking Hebrews? Actually, these are abstract English words used to translate the original Hebrew concrete words. The translators often translate this way because the original Hebrew makes no sense when literally translated into English. We did this last night. Sister Kay was asking me a question. Somebody else brought up the word, well, was Adam actually in the flesh? Was he a fleshly being? Did he have flesh? Well, actually, if you go back, you'll see that word basar, which is the root word for basora, which means gospel or good news. It actually doesn't mean flesh all the time. It can be translated as body. And so when it says, prior to the sin, I want to propose a question. Prior to the sin in the garden, was Adam and Eve not in the image of Yahweh, or were they in the image of sinful man? Right. We all know that. So what that looked like is unknown to us. So when we take that word flesh back to body, it changes the meaning of that, or the possible meaning of the whole passage. So again, if you just change or correct one English word, what does that make the rest of the verse look like? It's kind of mixed up, isn't it? Well, that's what Jeff is describing there. He's got a mechanical translation of the Torah that is a very good work. But boy, when you read it and you look at some of the translations we have, you go, wow, that's so unheard of. Well, normally that's when somebody is just bringing it over word for word, is when it's something that's new to you. All right?
Brother, can we go a paragraph down? Because I think that's very cool.
You want to read it? Go ahead.
Okay, let us take one of the above abstract words to demonstrate the translation from a concrete Hebrew word to an abstract English word. Anger, an abstract word, is actually the Hebrew word af, or aleph, right? Which literally means nose, a concrete word. When one is very angry, he begins to breathe hard and the nostrils begin to flare.
Right.
The Hebrew sees anger as the flaring of the nose, nostrils. If the translator literally translated the above passage slow to nose, the English reader would not understand. I just thought that paragraph was so
I forgot about
neat.
that. I didn't have it highlighted, but that's a great point.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to end up seeing. You're going to go, okay. And he makes another great point there. Now, see the word aleph? Okay, so we know that aleph is just an individual character, which is a picture of an ox head. And it means power, strength, leader, authority, those types of things. Also, when you start getting into the definition of each individual letter, some people are going to go, how do we know that each individual letter means what you say it means, Teddy? And I say, well, first of all, I'm not the one saying that it means anything. I'm merely reading you the information out of the book. But how do we know it? Because the letter Aleph is actually a Hebrew word with a definition. Each individual letter is a Hebrew word, even in modern Hebrew, and has a definition. That's how we know each individual letter means something. We're not making it up. Aleph is spelled, in ancient Hebrew, even modern Hebrew, is spelled Aleph Pei. And the Pei makes an F or a F sound, like Phineas. Okay, so Aleph is an actual word in Hebrew. So it has a definition. Where did those come from? Ancient concepts. Do you know that the assemblies of Yahweh are everywhere in the Torah and the prophets? The assemblies of Yahweh are linguistically embedded in the Torah and the prophets everywhere. I will gather my people. That means they were already somewhere in pockets, right? We did a teaching on that out at Elder Graham's place a couple years back. It was phenomenal. But they are embedded in there. We are embedded in the prophecies. The people who would call upon his name. It's everywhere. So, this word clean lip. Okay, so some versions probably use the term tongue there as well. Which are two different things, by the way. I'd like to point that out. Lip and tongue are two different objects in English. So which one is it? But we're going to deal with clean right now. The first thing you would do, if you're not using the Restoration Study Bible or one of those, which that's going to have you be able to skip a step if you want to. But I always start out in the Strongs because I've got a lot of notes and stuff in it along the way. And so we're going to look up, what is it in the King James? Pure or?
Pure.
Okay, pure. Then we would go look up the word pure in your Strongs. It's going to be number 1305 in the Hebrew. First step we want to do is go back to the Hebrew section in the Strongs. And we're going to find number 1302.
1302 or 1305?
1305, excuse me.
Zephaniah 3:9.
Yep.
Thought wrong.
Purify your lips.
Purified. So now, so this is one thing we're going to see. When you go back to the Strongs, you're going to see in italics, these are going to be sometimes more abstract, but you're going to see them use different English words in italics. What that means is this is a better way to word that word if you're going to translate it into English. So you'll see there that it specifically says, what was it, 1105?
1305.
1305. Barar, a primary or primitive root to clarify. Wait a minute. So this is going to start showing you the function, the reason behind him saying in the English text at least that he was going to restore unto us a pure or clean lip. It's because he wants to clarify stuff. There's going to be clarity when he begins to restore what he was talking about in Zephaniah.
33:3 uses that word, barar.
Mm-hmm.
My word shall be of the
In Job.
uprightness of my heart, and my lips shall utter knowledge clearly.
Clearly. Right. See, in other words, he's saying, I'm going to clarify something, right, when I speak. And that's exactly what's being spoken about here when he begins to restore that pure language. It's to what? Bring clarity to the body. We're going to clear up some things. And these definitions is what he's talking about. And it also says they're brighten. In other words, he's going to turn the light on things. There's going to be revelation. That's the function behind it. And then you see examine or select. Oh my. If you just stick to those words in italics, put one of those words back in there where you see clear or pure, and look at the way it begins to take on a stronger, deeper, clear meaning of what was being said. That's just with the Strongs. But now, if you have your ancient Hebrew lexicon, for you who don't, I'm going to pull it up on the screen. But in the back of the book of the ancient Hebrew lexicon on page 555, I always keep that bookmarked because that's where all of the Strong's Hebrew numbers begin in the back of Jeff's book. 555, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns on each page. In the first column, it's got number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way down to number 95. Those are Hebrew numbers in your Strong's. Hebrew's number 1, 2, through Hebrew number 95. So the Strong's Hebrew number 1 through 424 are on the first page. See? So those are Strong's numbers to the left of the column. And then the next number that you see to the right is the number that word is in his book. So what was our number? 1305? Okay, so we're going to find 1305 in these columns. And then you'd find 1305, that's your Hebrew number. And what number comes after it? 1043 BV. Then you go to the lexicon and you find number 1043, which is going to be back towards the beginning of the book. It's actually going to be on page 72 or 73 there. The top of the root line is on 72, but we're looking for BV, correct? Which is on page 73. And there you see Bet Resh Resh Barar. So anciently speaking, Jeff uses the word clean. And then comes the definitions. The cleaning or polishing of something to make it bright or pure. And the second one is, the second definition, the concrete word used there is choice. Something that is clean and pure. Not like it's your choice, but the choice fruit, the choice apple, the best of. Right? So what is he saying? I'm going to restore unto you the best language. The cleanest, purest, best thing I ever gave you.
A blue letter by Ron Driver, would you seen this?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Arabic, so the Arabic is pious, kind and true. So similar.
Everybody, those ancient letters don't go back to just Egypt. They go back to Eden. If all the world spoke the same language until the building of the Tower of Babel, then that ancient hieroglyphic alphabet had to go back to the days of Eden. So it's not Hebrew actually, it's Edenistic. It's what he chose to give man in the very beginning. For everybody had the same language. So doesn't he want us to speak the same language, to understand the same things? This is why I want to share this form of study with everybody, because it really forces us to look at things through the scope of Hebrew and not our own thoughts or beliefs. How do you create a body of people with one mind? They all have to be taught the same thing. Or investigate the same thing. Use the same process to come to the conclusions. And then more unity, only more unity can even stem from that. If you allow the language to tell you what it meant instead of me or George or whoever's teaching. Yes, we want to bring the passages out of this book, but if we exercise our minds to think Hebraically speaking, the message will automatically come across in a functional way instead of a dysfunctional way.
Could you explain Boker and Arab? I was kind of unsure about what you were saying there.
So
One's morning and one's...
So after we eat, I'll show you in the etymological dictionary what I mean by that.
That's because that's usually the time we see.
Yep.
You leaving already? Yeah, I gotta go to work. Where?
Good, keep feeding that slush fund.
Come back and see us.
First time I ever seen them walk away from food.
Shalom, Jose.
Yeah, I'll take over that one.
So, what words would you put instead of morning or evening there?
Guess what passage shows the ancient Hebrew word for daylight, for light?
Oh, you mean or?
Huh?
Or?
No.
No, that's,
That is light, but it's not the type,
Not-
the light that
right.
the sun shines.
no, that's,
The ancient Hebrew word for sunlight is found in Isaiah, where he says, if they come not with the law and the testimony, it's because there's no, look up that word. It's talking about daybreak. It's literally, and some of the scriptures have fixed that. That word there is the ancient Hebrew word for daylight.
Where's that? I'll check
Uh,
this one.
So, hold on, it's pin out. Write down that passage so we can research it. Isaiah, what is it? Keep the law and the testimony. If they come not with this, it's because there is no light in them. Isaiah 8:20.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so,
So if you look up that word,
I'll go on. Because they have no daybreak,
that's what the scripture says, but it
Yeah.
says light in them
and that
in most
is
versions. What number is it?
7837 in the ancient Hebrew. No, that's the strong 7837. In the AHL, it's 2829N
78 what?
37.
So we'll look up 7837 in the Hebrew.
Sure, you had it all along.
Shikar, there it says dawn. Right?
Yep.
So then we go to the ancient Hebrew lexicon, look up that number in the back of the book, And it's gonna tell us where it is in Jeff Benner's book,
Close.
7836.
2829 N.
I don't know how to.
Yep, 2829V in Benner's book.
The place of the rising sun. That's the first one, N, and then it's got an M, I forgot, masculine. Dawn, the place of the rising sun.
28 what?
2829 N.
Yeah, see, so 2829, at the top of the root line, you'll see that action root is dark, concretely dawn.
So when the sun comes up,
Yep,
okay, isn't there scripture when Joshua was resurrected and it uses that? As it dawn towards the first day of the week?
this is showing us Yahweh meant, I'm putting some signs in the sky for you. I want you to watch them. And I want you to watch the agriculture and how it reacts to it. And so why would that be a thing? Because everything in creation is doing exactly what he told it to do, except for us. We want a solar calendar. Why? Because we don't, but most of the people are the faith that are going that direction. Why do we need a solar calendar? Because it can't be that difficult. I'm so used to my birthday being on this day. Christmas is this day. Easter is that day. We want it that way. It's simple. And that's the way Yahweh made it. No, Yahweh said, I want you to watch. I want you to watch my creation. Because you're the only thing in it that's dysfunctional at this point. I want you to bring yourself back in order. And you have to watch and learn from something that is still in the order I created it in order to do that. That's why Yahshua was the express image of Yahweh's person. Because he showed us how to walk in order. I mean, it's just the language and the definitions, the more you look at them, just the more you see how you should explain, or what the Jewish people will call midrash. After they read, then you would go, normally you go, well, this passage means this, and you know, but then once you start getting this embedded into you, you're going to bring something new and refreshed and deep to the congregation. There's just so many revelations in this type of research. There's just no way that it can't happen if you use it. But I would submit that that's the purpose of the language, is to bring us new, refreshed revelation. Not different, but new, refreshed.
Testing, testing. I will not fall down, I will stand my ground. You will fill my cup as the world blows up. When it overflows, I will drop this rose.